Hey kids, this is Aaron from the podcast that wouldn't die, and Kevin and I use Zencastr. You think you're better than us, that you're using something else? You're wrong. Zencastr's the place to be. Who are you to deny it?
It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencastr. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio-quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests. Feel a sense of zen knowing Zencastr's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable. If you thought about podcasting before and realized that you need a lot of different tools and services, those days are over. With Zencastr's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast all in one place and distribute to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code DIEHARD and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencastr paid plan. We want you to have the same experiences we do for all our podcasting and content needs. It's time for you to share your story.
Only a fool will give up a chance for a 30% discount.
Hi, hello, how are you? It's Daryl here, and I am the host of Cage Rage, a Nicolas Cage podcast. On this podcast, come and join me on my journey to true Cage Nirvana. What is that, you ask? Well, it's the most profound, spiritual, emotional, elite state of being achieved only by, you guessed it, watching every movie the greatest actor of any generation has ever been in. Each week I'll be joined by an amazing guest as we talk all about the man I call the Golden Hog of Hollywood and dive unnecessarily deep into a Nick Cage film to learn a little more about this renegade of cinema. If you like your movie podcast a little different and a lot silly, but you just love Nicolas Cage, come and join me over on Cage Rage, wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, keep on caging. It's all you have to do.
"13 years ago, audiences across America were horrified by the savagery of a faceless killer. In the wake of this bizarre rampage, he vanished. Now, after more than a decade of silence, he has come out of hiding.
Welcome to the latest episode of the podcast that wouldn't die. I'm your host, Kevin. With me, as always, is Aaron.
Hello there, Kevin. How are you?
I'm just dandy. Thanks for asking. This week, we're discussing the horror comedy classic, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, starring Bill Moseley. I guess he's kind of a famous
Dennis Hopper. I think we need
Oh,
to
my
leave
bad.
that.
Of course.
What
Dennis
the
Hopper. What am I thinking
Perhaps
about?
you've heard of him.
Perhaps I've heard of him. This is clearly a fallow period for Dennis Hopper. The fact that he's in this. Was there a lot of cocaine going on with Dennis Hopper at this point?
I think he was parting it up with old Toby, and he's like, hey, just for shits and giggles, what do you think?
What do you think?
Let's go.
This isn't Hoosiers, okay? This is not, you know what I'm saying? This isn't Blue Velvet. This isn't, Easy Rider. What is Dennis Hopper thinking about when he's choosing
thinking
the
it's going to be iconic like the first one. He's like, don't you want to get on this? And maybe because he did this is why he went on to do Blue Velvet.
Perhaps. Each week on the podcast.
I like to think that Blue Velvet is autobiographical for Dennis Hopper.
You can let me finish my spiel. Like mid-sentence, you jump in. Each week on the podcast that wouldn't die, we discuss guilty pleasures and forgotten classics of the horror and sci-fi genre with a comedic twist, we hope. Aaron, what's up with you? How you doing?
What do you like? Do you like the cool light, or do you like... There we go.
This is good stuff to do before we start recording.
You didn't mention about my new hair color, which I'm very upset about.
What color is it?
It is rose gold.
Okay. I can kind of see that now that you mention it.
Also known as pink. But it's more rose gold, where my hair is completely gray, versus pink highlights and the dark brown back.
Nice. It's an ombre.
It's
All right.
an ombre. There's an ombre behind me. Get out of here. Sir, get out of my room.
What is it, a homophone? They're two words that sound similar but have different meanings. Ombre is where it's a color.
Sexist. This is
am I
we're nothing but
mansplaining?
inclusive.
What the? An ombre. Anywho, sweet Jesus. You're not thrilled that we asked you to watch Texas Chainsaw because it was Mother's Day weekend.
I mean, I saw the first one like 10,000 years ago, and then I thought X was supposed to be a remake of it. I didn't watch the new one. I mean, I can't even remember what my feelings are on the original one. So I was like, whatever. I watch all kinds of nonsense. And then it starts off, I was like, okay, I'm gonna like this. This is super campy and freaky, and then all of a sudden I fucking hate this movie. What is this shit my brother is goddamn making me watch, you son of a bitch. Wait till Father's Day. It's gonna be Sophie's Choice is what you're gonna watch right before bed, followed by Schindler's List.
Nothing
question. Like Nazis to sleep well.
Well, I mean, full disclosure, and Aaron, you know this. We were invited on our buddy Ed's amazing podcast, the Film Effect Podcast, and he wanted us to do Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. And as we will often do, if we go on another show to talk about a movie, we're going to beat this dead horse. Okay, we're going to talk about ours as well.
He clearly chose this just to with me. I am pretty sure, to quote Larry David.
No question. No question. Now, had you ever seen? You hadn't. You talked about you. This is virgin territory.
There's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
There were. I think that there's a 3. There's a Next Generation, if I'm remembering, and then there's the remake. Jean-Luc is in it.
Picard.
No, there is a. Part 3 has Viggo Mortensen before he was famous. And part 4 was shelved. But then Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger became big stars. So then they put that one out as well. So they're in part 4.
Good Lord.
Good Lord.
In the name of all that is holy.
Yes.
Or
100%.
Unholy.
Or unholy, as the case may be. No question. No,
this was a pill to swallow. I could have been watching the 5.5 hour finale of Eurovision. I could have been watching 90 Day Fiancé, but instead, after a very long weekend of being at a music festival and partially crippled and brain damaged, and spending large amount of money on band T-shirts and then hitting IKEA, I dragged my broken body to my deathbed and promptly watch this on Mother's Day.
I kind of warned you. I had just watched it for the first time in 30 years, and I was like, ugh, was kind of my response. I'm like, this is not proper Mother's Day fare, but whatever the case may be.
It is not proper Tuesday night fare. It is not proper COVID watching.
No.
We let a lot of movies slide during COVID if they were at least slightly funny or at least weird. This is not one of those.
Why don't you give us your 30-second synopsis of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2?
Oh my God. Small town in Texas where, bad things happen because it's Texas. And if you besmirch Texas, then freaks come out of amusement parks to chop you up while gibbering like idiots. And Dennis Hopper is the sheriff who's also part of the family. I feel like he
Did you watch this movie?
Didn't you for half the movie think he was like the relative on the outside?
Well, the issue is later in the movie, he goes and gets chainsaws of his own, which makes no GD sense.
Which made me think, and that the fact when a girl falls in the hole, he hands her a severed arm to pull her up like a crusty old snap on a Slim Jim.
Yeah.
Like that's how you're gonna pull someone up. So I was super suspicious of him. And then it was his sister in real life. I mean, this copper knew way too much about this property.
Okay, you're absolutely right about that. But let me just set you straight.
I'm wondering if he was a nam with old silver plate.
This is the story, and you kind of got the idea.
I haven't finished.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Simulated chainsaw sex.
Yes.
It wants to be funny, but it's too disgusting to be funny. Most people die at the end.
Yes, 100%.
How about that?
So, as you know, or as some people may know, the end of the first movie, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I will say, before I saw it, it was in my mind like it was some kind of nightmarish vision of horror.
Oh my God, there was such a buildup. It was such a buildup. I mean, I didn't even see it for years because the legend around it was so terrifying and upsetting. It was like, it's like Faces of Death. You're like,
absolutely,
no, you don't want to see that. You don't want. It's going to mess with you.
But when you watch it, you kind of realize, while the ideas are disturbing, you really don't see much. It's not a gore fest. Right.
So they decided to turn that around with this.
They went in a total different direction. Right. It was more of like the ideas. They don't show you a whole lot. You hear a lot of chainsaws whipping around, but it's not gore galore. It truly isn't. But okay, so the one girl who survived, Sally Hardesty, survived at the end of the movie, and then they kind of, with this movie, they start with like the Star Wars crawl, where they kind of
20 minutes of explaining that in Texas this is just every day,
right?
Like having a open carry and drinking a tall boy.
Absolutely, gun racks.
You're in gun racks. You are going to have a relative who disappears and is cut up with a chainsaw. It's
so what they
say?
So this
baffles police.
They're baffled. So. She's in catatonic state, basically, and the police investigated where she said to go before she drifted away, and didn't find anything. So the family's still on the loose, and that for the last 14 years, there have still been unexplained murders popping up here and there. Now, the crawl also introduced us to Sally's uncle, Lefty Enright, who was a former Texas Ranger, who's now devoted his life to trying to track down this family. And that's Dennis Hopper. That's who he is. But most of the cops in Texas don't really believe this is a real thing. You know, there isn't really a family of cannibals going place to place. That's all just hooey and applesauce. Essentially, is what they think.
Is that a thing, or is that a thing you're trying to make be?
It's a thing, but it's not my thing. So that's where the thing kicks off. And then we meet, what's her name? Stretch. Now, she's a DJ of the local radio station called Okla. I guess they're on the Texas-Oklahoma border, I'm guessing. And why is she Stretch? Is she tall? Is that what we're supposed to think?
Taller than what? Taller than a crab? I mean, taller than what?
Is taller than a crab a
thing?
She
has very tall legs because she's wearing cutoff shorts that go all the way up into her reproductive organs.
No question. No question. But so, now that we've set the stage, Dennis Hopper's not related to the crazy cannibal family. He's just Sally's uncle who's bent on revenge.
He calls her sister. Okay, but then Stretch, he calls sister.
Not unrelated. I don't know why he would do that.
He's like, sister.
Say that again? How did she say? Sister. I don't remember that. Stretch is not related. Stretch is unrelated to anybody else in this.
What the hell?
No. Unrelated.
I did think he was very cavalier about trying to rescue her, considering it was sister.
Yes. I think
maybe he just doesn't care.
And we're kind of jumping right in. Essentially what happens is, and this doesn't make any sense at all, she's, on the radio playing music, doing her thing. And I guess it's the weekend of the University of Texas versus University of Oklahoma football game. I don't know why that's important. There are a couple. Go ahead, Aaron. What are you saying?
A couple of yuppie Okies, which I don't know, that makes it your higher level than Texas. That seems like a lateral, but we'll have to ask people from that part of the world. And they're in here disrespecting every Texas landmark as they go by. It's Ozzy Osbourne peeing on the wall at the Alamo.
100%.
So they
100%.
needed to be punished, and they were punished with a chainsaw on the head.
But tell me this. So they're calling into the radio station, and for some reason they can't hang up on them?
So they can hang up the phone and not talk to them, but they're still connected until the other side hangs up.
Why is that?
I think it's an old-timey thing.
Is that what it is? Because it makes...
Old phones. The fact that they had a car phone, which was just like the one our mom had back in the day when she started real estate, where it was attached into the car.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's what we knew we were making it. Mom has a car phone. So there's something about you're not breaking the connection.
So the radio station has to keep them on cannot hang up on them.
They can hang up the phone, but they're not going to get any calls coming through. They're not going to get any calls coming through, nor can they call anyone else, because every time they pick up the phone, if they haven't hung up, it's still them on the line. And they're just calling and harassing. Kids, back in the day, there was this thing called radio, and that's where we learned about music. So you would call the radio station.
The request line.
There's a request line, and you could talk to the DJ. I, as a 12-year-old, used to call the midnight DJ, and we would chit-chat.
Oh, my God. This took a turn.
I was in 8th grade, and I'd be like, hi, and I always request the same song. It was like, play Misty for me. You'd be like,
God.
Hi, Aaron.
So it's a horror movie in real life, is what you're saying.
It's a horror movie in real life, although I couldn't stalk him, nor did I know what he looked like. And then when I finally saw a picture of him, I was like, oh, my God. So anyway... Back to the story. People would call and talk to people on the radio. And so these guys keep calling and harassing them. And she has clearly a bad screener. Usually you have someone screening.
Right. Correct.
How about you just don't take any more calls for the rest of the day? So anyway, live on the air. And for some reason they're recording it. I don't know why they're recording it.
It's policy of the station.
It's policy to just record 24 hours. Actually, they sign off at midnight. So 12 hours of music every day. So we hear the murder of these two jackasses who are just driving through the countryside, drinking and shooting guns out the window, as one does in the Midwest.
Right. They played chicken with the wrong truck. Is essentially what happened. It was Leatherface and his brother Chop Top, who were just out for a Friday afternoon drive, evidently.
No, they was looking for trouble. He already had his ventriloquist twin dead brother with him. So.
Correct.
So they were cruising for trouble.
So Leatherface is now standing in the back in the tailgate, like the bed of the truck, swinging his chainsaw around while they're going 90 miles an hour. Seemingly in reverse, right?
Yeah.
So, meanwhile, the jackasses, the preppy guys have a gun. And they're not able, they shoot the ventriloquist brother for no reason.
Especially, don't be a jackass with your douchey Volkswagen Cabriolet, okay, with a soft top when you're fighting chainsaw people. But at the same time, they're driving the same speed limit. Yes. I was like, put on your brakes, jackass.
Put on your brakes.
Let them fly by. You turn around and leave.
Absolutely. 100%.
Put on your brakes. So that's why they needed to die. Plus, they were kind of douchey.
They were big time douche. You're kind of rooting for Leatherface in this moment, in all honesty. The whole murder is recorded. The murder's recorded. And I guess we're supposed to think because no one really believes in the chainsaw cannibal family that just, again, it's an audio recording. It wasn't like
Right.
they're like, hey, here, you can find us at the abandoned amusement park or any, there's no, all you hear is screams and chainsaw. And I have the one dude dropping MFs like constantly. So it's very strange. There is a chili cookout, kind of a contest at the local Ramada. What's happening here?
I'm guessing this is some like tailgate party, and then there's the chili cookout, as one does in Texas.
Yes.
This movie, it's like bits and pieces of other movies. So it's like a bit of the Motel Hell.
Oh, yes.
And kind of just a couple of other things. A bit of David Lynch and just way too much Rob Zombie vibe. This may be the movie that put Rob Zombie over the edge. And at the beginning, it's all these like weird, like everybody looks weird and is hyper. And you think, okay, this is going to be funny. This is going to be a fun movie. Everybody is just a freak. And then until it's not.
Until it's not. 100% until it's not.
Even the dude getting his head chopped off like halfway and he's still driving. I'm still with you.
Oh, no question. Still with you. Yes. Yeah. So at the chili cookout, we discover, if you've seen Texas Chainsaw, you recognize the patriarch of the family is like winning the contest of the chili cookout. And at one point, the lady's like tasting a sample, and there's clearly a tooth. and he quickly grabs it. He's like, oh, that's one of those hard peppercorns, honey. So, like, this is meant to be funny. This is clearly like a comedic beat here. So while she's there, I guess, interviewing and making local news for her radio show, she also is there to talk to Lefty, the Texas Ranger, to say, I've got the evidence of this. I saw the newspaper report about the murder. I've got the radio recording. Will you help me? And for some reason, he doesn't want to take the evidence. He doesn't want to work with her. Doesn't want to talk to her. It made absolutely no sense. Are you surfing the internet right now? Are you on your phone?
Googling again. What does human meat taste like?
Oh God. What does it say? Chicken?
I mean, because I've always heard it's supposed to taste like pork, which is why human meat was called long pork.
Interesting.
Instead of the short ham, we have like a longer ham. But since then, I have heard that it actually tastes somewhat different. I don't know who the experts are.
That's the question.
Smithsonian says it tastes like beef, but the taste is more elusive.
What the hell does that mean?
It tastes maybe a little gamier, more like a goat, according to Smithsonian. That seems like real people.
I'm not doing the Pepsi challenge on human flesh. Forgive me. But later he agrees to work with her, and he tells her, and in a plot point that I can only think of is that she's meant to be bait for the killers. He says, play the recording over your airways over and over and over and over again. He said,
and you're not he's not an officer. He's just a dude. And she's like, oh, okay.
Well, again, former Texas Ranger. So he's got a law enforcement. You're right.
It's not like Boss Hogg rolled up and said, you got to do this.
It's not Roscoe.
It's a matter of public safety. Because she owns this and doesn't have a boss, and no one's going to call to complain you're playing a murder thing over and over and over again.
Right. Over and over. Murder where it's, again, even if you think the murder's not real, there's a dude dropping MFs nonstop in the recording that she's just blasted out into the airwaves. I think she even says it.
FCC is going to give some fines, I think.
She even says, I can't play the recording because of the FCC. And I thought Dennis Hopper was going to say something, I'll take care of that. Don't you? No, he's just like, well, whatever. You figure it out. It's
your responsibility.
Right. You figure it out, honey. So, oh God. So I'm kind of on board. up into this moment. Now, granted, not much has happened. The time it starts to turn, and I remember my stomach to start to turn at this point as well.
I remember pausing and thinking, oh, fuck, this better be one of them 90-minute horror specials, because I'm not going to take much of this.
I start to turn when Chop Top, wearing his famous Sonny Bono wig, shows up on the scene.
See, it wants to be funny, but it doesn't know when to pull back. That was funny, but I'm already vomiting. So
yes,
kind of lost some of the magic there.
It was gross. So we don't know what the full extent is at this point, but you see him with like a coat hanger, and he takes a lighter and he lights the hook of the coat hanger, and he's constantly itching his head, which is gross enough.
It's like he's picking out like the lice or the ticks or whatever.
It's gross enough. So and then after he itches his head with the hook, he then takes the finger and then like puts it in his mouth like he's a little bonobo chimpanzee.
Yes.
It was at this moment I'm already like blah. And
oh yeah, it was so. I was like, okay, this is just gonna be gross. I can't
that's basically the whole rest of the movie. It's like, look how funny it is that we're this gross.
Yeah,
it's kind of the way.
So disgusting. And then they killed Pete Farnan, who used to be the bass player with the Pretenders before he drug overdosed, by hitting him with a hammer over and over and over again. I was like, okay, all right.
It was 10 minutes. They kept cutting back, and he was still hitting him in the head with the hammer.
And he still kept getting up.
Yes. Well, and then later he kind of wakes up again.
Yes,
so,
with no face and half skinned.
Yeah. So Leatherface busts through the wall and accidentally saws his brother. And the wig flies off and it reveals just an exposed steel plate in his head.
Oh my
and
God.
For the whole rest of the movie, the exposed steel plate is and he's itching.
And he's picking off chunks of the meat and eating it.
It was so disgusting. It was stomach churning. But again, I saw this like literally, late 80s. Late 80s, I saw this on cable. It was
a different time. You also saw a lot of Jean-Claude Van Damme and thought it was good.
Oh, make no mistake. I was profoundly disturbed when I saw this at age 12. And, at the time, I thought it was like horrific horror. I didn't notice a sniff of comedy as a 12-year-old watching this.
No.
Right? Or a 13-year-old. I was like, I don't ever need to watch this again. So this is literally the first time I had seen this since the late 80s.
Mommy no likey. Mommy no likey. Bad touch.
Bad touch.
Bad.
Absolutely. And now I'm watching it and more things are starting to pop up. Like, I guess Leatherface falls in love with Stretch. Is that what we're supposed to think?
Just by looking at him.
Right. And then
so they have simulated sex.
Yes.
Where we watch him actually masturbate, but he ejaculates by running around with the chainsaw.
Right. He's basically, the chainsaw is his dick, is what we're supposed to think.
Literally shoved it all the way up her cooch. And
not up her cooch, but yes, touching her pelvic area. Yes,
yeah, they were grinding.
Yes,
and she's faking it like she's some super genius on how to figure this whole thing out. No, she had some of the strangest lines. Like she was somehow floating above her body, feeding herself lines. Yes. Or something.
Well, even I was like, "What is she trying to say? What is she doing?" Yes, there's a lot of those. Are you good? And I'm like, is she saying what I think she's saying?
But literally, there was one scene behind Leatherface where I believe he was diddling himself. I was like, oh. Jesus,
that's what we're supposed to think. No question. That's the impression.
There were some rapid movements. Let me just say that.
Yeah. So he doesn't kill her and leaves her behind. So right. Chop Top, and I guess this is explained somewhere or somehow, in the first movie, there was Leatherface, there was the cook, who's the patriarch, but sometimes they say the father, sometimes they say the older brother. I don't know what he is. There's the cook. Then in the first movie, there was a character just called the hitchhiker, who is the creepy like dude who jumps in the van with them and then like is cutting himself and then they kick him out. He's the other freaky guy. Now he gets hit by a semi in the first movie. Okay, so he's dead. This movie, they introduce his twin brother, and that's Chop Top. Okay, but I don't know if they ever say he's the twin brother. Or,
How did you figure out he was the twin brother?
If you have to read like the Wikipedia page or whatever, he's the twin brother of the hitchhiker from the first movie.
But and he was in Nam, and that's why he couldn't be in the first movie.
He was in the Nam.
Because that couldn't be mentioned more than 1,000 times.
More than 1,000 times. And whenever you see like them kind of carrying around like a willowy corpse, that's the body of the hitchhiker from the first movie. Again, I don't know if it's ever expressly stated that's the case, but
and it's like a Jim Henson Muppet Studio where he's dressed in black behind the dead thing.
Yes, you see that a couple times. Or sometimes
he's just carrying it around and dancing with it.
This movie is, I don't even know how to describe it. But anywho, they leave Leatherface and Chop Top, jump in the truck and drive away. Although they take the board operator who they hit with a hammer. They take him with them for their chili.
Why don't they take her with him?
Right.
Isn't this the thing where all the bodies disappear?
Yes.
So it makes no sense that they left her alive.
Correct. Like Chop Top should have been like, grab her as well, but he doesn't say that for some reason.
It makes as much sense of how that chainsaw went through a steel door. Much sense.
It didn't go through the steel door. He couldn't get through the steel door, so he goes around and just goes right through the drywall. Bam! Like the Kool-Aid Man. Just smashes through the wall.
That is a flaw in the design.
It is a big flaw in the design, no question. So they're getting away, and Stretch is like, Lefty's supposed to be here, I guess, but he's not.
It was midnight. Everybody was leaving. You've signed off. Why would Lefty be coming back?
Because she played the goddamn recording 1,000 times, clearly meant to be bait. But Lefty is not surveilling the radio station to catch these guys? What is he doing?
It's ridiculous.
So
wait, which one's Lefty? The studio manager?
No, that's like LG or whatever his name is. Lefty is frickin' Dennis Hopper.
Well, I mean, frankly, why did the board operator leave and come back? He was home for free. He came back with 2 coffees. Why did he come back for 2 coffees after the studio's closed for the night?
Was he trying to hit on her? Is that what it was about? He said, "Wow, darling, why don't we go get some coffee?" And she's like, "Hell to the no." And he comes back with the coffee. I don't know what the plan is.
I was not getting like any kind of weird vibe. Not like a sexy vibe or a weird vibe. They just seem like coworkers.
So she follows Leatherface and Chop Top by herself.
As one does.
No. I don't know what her plan was when she finds them.
Maybe she's a fucking ninja. Maybe she's Catwoman. We don't know. Well, it turns out, she is none of those.
She's none of those. She was not in the special forces.
She's a dum-dum is what
she's not a trained ninja. No. Yeah. She doesn't have a gun. This is Texas. She's the only one without a gun.
Everybody has a gun but her. Everybody has 50 guns but her.
100%. So she follows them, and it goes to a crazy abandoned amusement park called Texas Battleland, I guess. And then
were there battles in Texas besides the Alamo, which they lost?
Shots fired at her.
So is this supposed to be down like near San Antonio? Where is this place on the Oklahoma border?
I think,
which is not San Antonio.
No. I thought they were in the greater Dallas-Fort Worth area, is what I thought. And when Lefty is talking to like the police at the beginning of the movie, they suggest that the original murders took place like in Amarillo or someplace down south. So that's why another reason why they're kind of skeptical. They're like, well, those murders were,
That's for
hundreds of
city
miles
folks.
away. Right.
That's where things go wrong. Some of those
100%.
left coast people moved in there.
That's what it is.
Citified it.
Clearly. Luckily, Lefty appears on the scene. How did Lefty discover the amusement park? No explanation. He just appears. Here I am. I don't know why.
He appears, and again, seems to have some knowledge of this place that is unexplained. As in, how the hell did he get to the lowest level?
Well, what happens? He's talking to her, and then a trap door opens up under her feet, just at a random place.
Right. Like, I would be like, maybe I should move the car off this rickety old ass bridge.
Yes. And it doesn't seem like it's just an automatic trap door. No one like hit a button to drop her in there because they didn't know she was there. No one knew she was there.
So maybe it wasn't a trap door. It's just decomposed. Maybe they should just blow up the bridge and then the freaks are trapped.
Well, what does Lefty do? He gets there because she falls in the hole and he's like, oh, well, sorry. He goes right through the entrance of the, I don't know, the haunted amusement park.
The haunted hill.
There is like a mural of like Jim Bowie or somebody on the wall with like a line of blood dripping down. And Lefty kicks the wall.
It's like the Indian who's sad because we're littering, except it's a tear of blood.
It was Iron Eye Cody, 100%.
Iron Eye Cody, if he was Jim Bowie.
Who is not
Died
Native
at the
American.
Alamo?
Jim Bowie, yes. So he kicks the wall and then just
Is
gore.
this in fact under the Alamo? Is this the basement of the Alamo as foretold in Pee-wee's
Big Adventure? 100%. So gore starts pouring out of the wall. For what reason? I have no idea. Why is there gore just in the walls? No explanation.
Why are they cannibals? Because it seems like a lot of the meat goes to waste.
Well, and there isn't proper refrigeration. So there's a lot of rooms where it's just limbs just thrown on the ground over here.
I mean, are they smoking them like a ham? But either way, it seems like there's way too much stuff hanging around that they don't need to keep going to the grocery store. If your refrigerator is full, you don't then get like a Walmart delivery that day for $75.
No, I agree.
Fridge is full. So are they hunting for sport at this time? There's how many chili competitions are there in Texas?
I think the issue is that they were not out looking for prime meat. They were just doing jackassery.
They're looking like not prime, but maybe select.
No,
I mean, this is not Wagyu.
No, this is definitely not. This isn't Kobe.
This ain't even mutton.
They were out doing jackass stuff, which is why when the recording comes out, the cook, the patriarch, is like, you jackasses, what the... So they have to go deal with this thing. He had to go
Three Stooge them and give them the knucklehead and bang their heads together.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. Oh, wise guy.
A wise guy, eh?
Yeah.
That would have been better, honestly.
That would have been better.
Eye poke.
So they weren't looking for more meat at that moment, but they figured, well, we've killed this dude. We might as well eat him as well. So there you go.
Again, they got enough chunks of viscera that they could be over at Motel Hell grinding out the snazzages. This
No
could
question.
be everybody in Texas could have a freezer full of Farmer Fidget or whoever the hell this family is.
Old Farmer Fidget. Absolutely. No question. I mean, it's kind of interesting because you don't actually see them like actually grabbing somebody and biting them.
No.
Right? They just kill people. And after they've killed them, then I guess at that point, then they treat them like cows.
They were eating chunks of their meat out of their own head. So
that was just gross chop top for some reason.
Maybe it's their version of sushi. I don't know.
And that's the thing, man. Chop top is far more grotesque than Leatherface.
Yes, it's just disgusting.
He's just
literally
gross.
like a character out of frickin' Rob Zombie.
Yes.
Just gross to be gross.
Gross for grossness' sake, no question. When you make Leatherface look good, you know there's a problem. No question. No question. And so when Dennis Hopper, Lefty, gets there, he sees the gore. He starts chopping down the load-bearing beams to bring the whole place down. I mean, why not look for the girl who could be being tortured and killed at this moment?
Why not just go shoot the people instead of trying to get a giant magic mountain to collapse on top of you?
Well, how about this? Let's call the cops.
How about this? Why aren't you a cop, dude? And how are you paying your bills at this point?
These are important questions we
maybe he's accountable too. Wasn't there a horror film where it turns out the sheriff was like a relative or something?
Yeah. Was that one of the sequels? One of the sequels?
Maybe I'm thinking of...
Well, that's Motel Hell as well.
That's Motel Hell.
Yes,
I'm just thinking, it all comes back to Motel Hell. That's why I kept waiting for Dennis Hopper to be revealed as the relative we can with the public face.
Well, what they said was Motel Hell came out after the original Texas Chainsaw. It was meant to be kind of a parody of Texas Chainsaw. Then when this one came out, it was meant to kind of parody Motel Hell.
And it did not, because Motel Hell is a masterpiece.
You love Motel Hell much more than I do. I'm not a huge Motel Hell guy.
What's the famous line? It takes all kinds of critters to make Farmer Vincent's fritters.
Absolutely.
I mean, come on. It's comedy. It's comedy. I love
Jesus.
that.
There's a scene later in the movie. There's a protracted chainsaw battle between 65-year-old Dennis Hopper and Leatherface, who's supposed to be 7 feet tall and 300 pounds. I don't know how that's protracted, but
first of all, Leatherface was shorter than Stretch, so I'm guessing Leatherface was about 5'7" and about 250.
He was a Hollywood 5'7" in this movie, no question, no question.
It was Tom Cruise.
It was Billy Barty. It was Mickey Rooney.
Same thing.
So they're fighting, and then I guess what happens? The cook goes and drags the corpse of the hitchhiker, who in this movie is called Nubbin for some reason. And he's got a grenade. Why does this corpse have a grenade?
How do you even know it's the twin? Because they literally have just corpses sitting all around on the sofa for them to visit with.
I don't know when they make this announcement, but if you look at the Wikipedia, it clearly tells you these were twin brothers. Get
on there and re-edit the Wikipedia.
I agree. So he's got the grenade. The cook now has a grenade, and he's about to pull the pin and blow them all up.
Because Chop Shop or whatever, Top Shop,
Top Chef,
stole it from
Top Gear,
from his time in Da Nang.
Yes, it's true. Quezon. Oh God help us. So he's going to pull the grenade, and somehow he gets bumped, and the grenade falls on the ground, and then they all die. They all explode.
But he gets killed even before it goes off because he gets a chainsaw in the head.
That's what it is. He gets chainsawed by Leatherface on accident. So now Lefty, the cook, and Leatherface are all blown up, and the only people left are Stretch and Chop Top, who's chasing her with a straight razor and just slicing her, which was very upsetting to me. It was
super creepy. And then at one point, he goes to starts making slices on his own throat. For what reason? We don't know.
Yeah, he's
not deep enough to do anything.
Clearly not, but he's slicing his throat, which I'd be like, just keep doing that, big guy, and then our problems are solved. She finds okay. Downstairs in the explosion as well was Grandpa.
Oh,
the
Jesus.
Grandpa who is still alive, even though he's 137 years old. And he was a character in the first movie as well, like an old, crazy, kind of cadaverous person.
He looks like, bring me my cake, Bedelia.
He looked worse than that.
This guy had a little bit more energy. Old Grandpa on his all human blood diet.
Yes.
cannot hold the hammer. Because there's a whole protracted story
Yes.
that Grandpa used to be the guy who put the hammer on the cow's head at the rendering plant. But quite
Yes.
frankly, my knowledge with animals is we send them to the rendering plant when they died, not alive. Anyway,
They do it differently in Texas, perhaps.
that's right. Like, oh, here's a whole cow. Let's just boil it down for grease and dog food.
And this mirrors a scene from the original movie as well, where it's like they have the girl kind of tied to a chair, and rather than just kill her, they bring in crispy old mummified grandfather to try to give her the coup de grace to finish her off, but he's so enfeebled he can't even like hold the hammer. So it's like 10 minutes of him dropping the hammer on the floor, and they keep doing. That's in both the movies, unless I've totally lost my mind.
I blacked out the first one, and they only finally whack her twice, and then she pops up. So that in a way, it is a Three Stooges, because
Yes.
Mo was always hitting him in the head with a hammer to no ill effect.
So which one's Curly Joe is my question.
Curly Joe was clearly that's Chop Top with the Sonny Bono wig.
With the Sonny Bono wig. Not a Sonny Bono. Was it Sonny Bono?
Yes, it was. I wrote it down. I was like, ha ha, Sonny Bono.
But there's a scene. So she's running away from Chop Top by climbing the staircase. And there's a
Rock Candy Mountain, we're going to call it.
Yes, it's like Candyland. So up at the tower is now another corpse who's the grandmother, I guess, who has a chainsaw in her
She was like
hands.
the queen bee in Alien.
Yes.
Where she's like all mummified with large pendulous breasts and a chainsaw and not dead.
I think she was dead. She was.
There was movement. And then it was like, you killed her.
Right.
Mommy.
But so she grabs the chainsaw, it's a stretch now, and she's trying to crank it. Who knows? That chainsaw must have been there for 50 years.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's like part of the mummified remains. Is there fuel in it? I hope so. So she's cranking it while Chop Top is literally behind her, just slashing her back. And you see it. I was like, So she chainsaws him. He falls down a hole, and then she does a crazy
falling down
dance.
the hole. The craziest thing I ever saw. That was the only thing I marveled at. The way he slipped and fell and magically just spun right down into that hole. I was like, I wonder how many times they made him do that. That would not have been one take.
Well, hopefully a stuntman, but who's to say? It's a low budget production.
As far as I know, all these people are stuntmen.
Could be. And so she does a crazy dance at the top of the tower with the chainsaw. Credits roll. And that's the movie. Good Lord, this movie. What can one say about it?
Here's something for your epitaph.
Please.
Like death eating a cracker. Like, what the hell does that mean?
There were a lot of crazy one-liners in this movie. Good Lord.
I question, eventually you stop screaming, right? I mean, even if the monster keeps chasing you, eventually do you just stop screaming?
Her screaming definitely was of the more irritating variety, I would say. What do you think?
She gets quiet, and then it was, ah!
Right.
I mean, quite frankly, I feel like that would slow you down.
I agree. It's hard to run
and expel your lungs
at the same time.
Yeah.
No question.
And using a turkey slicer that you would, if it was the 1970s and Thanksgiving, which barely cut through a cooked turkey breast, is not how you're going to take apart a human body. A lot of big bones in there, kids.
I'm not a huge fan. Yeah, the turkey slicer slices the guy's face off, puts the juicy face on Stretch's face, which I thought he was doing it to kind of disguise her so that she can get away, but then he ties her up.
Which didn't make any sense. So he put the thing on it for her to hide, but you're right, still tied her up. And then all of a sudden the dude from the Pretenders jumps back up.
Yep.
And is like talking, and I was for sure thinking it's a trick, that it's one of the freaks.
Because we'd seen that before.
And then he like frees her, and it looks like he's going to stab her, but then he doesn't. And then he takes a nap and never wakes up again.
And never
Yeah.
wakes up. And that was a long scene, too.
The two interesting things I thought was when he fell down the hole at the end.
Yep.
That was a crazy shot.
Yep.
And the weird hallway, the tunnel with 1,000 lights, and they were all like old lamps from the 40s and 50s. It looked kind of cool. And every so often, like, desiccated human bodies all along the path. That was a cool visual.
It's kind of a House of 1,000 Corpses kind of visual.
I blocked all that.
Well, one thing, so Lefty, while he's in there, I guess, trying to find his way to Stretch at one point, stumbles across a wheelchair with an old, like, desiccated body in it. That was Franklin Hardesty from the first movie.
Oh yeah. They could, because none of the people were found, and the corpse had been chainsawed. So part of the face was a little off,
askew. No, in the first movie, there's an extended scene of Sally pushing her, I don't know, paraplegic brother through the woods with Leatherface chasing them, and at that whole time, you're just like,
bro.
I love you, bro, but you're in a wheelchair. We're on uneven ground. There's a psychopath with a chainsaw.
We're both gonna die. Peace.
100%. And then, of course, there's the moment where it's just like, oh, I don't hear the chainsaw anymore. You can't sneak up on somebody with a chainsaw, and you cannot turn off your chainsaw and then immediately crank it back on to full power. It's not how it works. I'm not a chainsaw expert. That's just typically not how it works.
I play one on TV. I would have to agree with you. Also, the Nick Cage pillow behind you, which is always in a slightly different location, is haunting. It could be Leatherface.
It could be.
It could be Leatherface.
Ain't no lie. Any other thoughts and feelings before we go behind the scenes?
No.
That'll get the job done. Boom.
Way too many Nam flashbacks, which was kind of funny and sad because that was a thing people said. Everything was a Nam flashback.
Nam flashback! Nam flashback!
So many people damaged coming back from Vietnam that eventually it just became like a thing.
It became a thing, no question.
What's wrong with you? You have one of them Nam flashbacks?
One of them Nam flashbacks? Let's do behind the scenes.
I have one more thing.
Please.
They had money. And do you know why I say that?
Why do you say that?
Because they have music from Oingo Boingo and the Cramps at the beginning.
Oh, yeah,
That must have cost some money. Usually these 80s chop them up movies, it's just some bullshit. I mean, there was some bullshit in this one. I saw in the credits, Toby did the music also. I mean, come on.
Do you know how I know this movie's meant to be a comedy? Not from anything funny happening in the movie, but because the poster for this movie is making fun of the Breakfast Club. It's like an exact recreation of the Breakfast Club poster, but with the
like
casting.
that idea. But you go into this thinking it's a comedy, you're going to have a problem. It's not like the new Mean Girls, where they bury the fact that it's a musical.
Right.
I mean, you're not going to be vomiting because it's a musical. If I walked into this thinking it was a wacky comedy, I would be burning the theater down. And then I would be hunting down Dennis and Toby.
100%. Behind the scenes, director Toby Hooper and co-writer of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Kim Henkel, originally had an idea for a sequel that would feature an entire town of cannibals and also be a satire of the film Motel Hell, which is itself a satire of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I mean, the basic idea sounds good. It'd be like, we used to call Leisure World, which is a retirement community all throughout Southern California, Seizure World. So it could be like something like that. Because there was always a car accident at the entrance of it. It's like every time someone pulls out, there's a massive car accident right out front of Seizure World.
Seizure World. The title of this proposed sequel was going to be called Beyond the Valley of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
See, now that sounds like comedy.
It sounds like comedy.
But the minute you start picking your own flesh off with a hot poker and eating it, the minute you simulate sex with a chainsaw, Doherty out.
Doherty out, no question. The studio, which was the infamous Cannon film studio, forced.
I would have loved to have been in a Cannon film. I'm just going to throw that out there. Just not the. Well, I would have even been in this.
Of course,
I didn't have to ever watch it.
They forced them to basically hire a new screenwriter, and the result was this movie.
Cannon would have had to start smoking again.
No question. Cannon was big for taking movies from the 70s, buying the rights, and then doing sequels. They're the ones who did all of the Death Wish sequels with Charles Bronson. They're the ones who did Superman 4, A Quest for Peace. Just the fourth one, mind you. The crappiest one by far. And of course, they did all the ninja movies, including Ninja 3, The Domination. So good times.
And I'm ashamed to say I'd be in any of them. I would love to be in
100%. After the controversy of Poltergeist, because remember, Tobe Hooper was the credited director of Poltergeist, but there's word on the street that was really Spielberg who directed it. Who even directed it, they said.
Yeah.
So Tobe Hooper signed a 3-picture deal with Cannon Films. They basically said you can do what you want. The results of those movies are, number 1, Life Force, which is a movie I will go to the mat for, which is naked space vampires in London.
Right. Yes.
Then he did the sequel, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and the third one was a remake of the old 50s science fiction movie Invaders from Mars, which not a great one, in my humble opinion.
I mean, you make them cheap enough, people will see it and you will make money. Is that what happened?
Yes. That was Cannon's thing. What killed Cannon is they made 2 big mistakes. Number 1, they made the Sylvester Stallone action movie Over the Top about arm wrestling, which in and of itself,
I never saw that.
It's hilarious. They filed a child custody with arm wrestling. So that's just the way to do it.
The wife against Sylvester Stallone?
It's actually the grandfather, the dead wife's mother, or dead wife's father.
The dead grandfather wrestles Sylvester Stallone?
He wrestles him. But what killed it is that they paid Stallone $10 million, which was astronomical at that time, to be in this movie. Because he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to do it, so they kept paying him more and more until he finally agreed. And again, like you said, they were low budge all the way, and that's how they made money. But by paying
all the other actors had to eat bologna sandwiches.
100%. Back to Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Dennis Hopper thought this was the worst movie he'd ever been in. Of course, he later said the same thing about Super Mario Brothers from 1993.
Oh,
so there you go.
He don't give a shit.
He's got bills to pay.
Yeah, bills to pay. He's got lawyers to pay off. He got shit. Yeah.
Oh, no question.
He was so creepy in Blue Velvet, though.
Oh yeah. Bill Moseley said that his role as Chop Top is his favorite of his own.
Whatever. This gentleman has clearly had ADHD, and they just said, go wild, my friend, go wild.
Well, what's funny is he is now a regular in the Rob Zombie stable. He's in all of his movies.
Little baby Rob Zombie went and hired all the freaks from all his favorite disgusting films.
Yes. Oh, no question.
Yep. Absolutely.
Tom Savini once stated that the makeup effects that he created for Grandpa is his most proud accomplishment, which he compared to the makeup of the aged Dustin Hoffman in Little Big Man in 1970.
Which he did not do.
Wah, wah. Many fans of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974 disliked this movie due to the emphasis on gore and wacky humor. Toby Hooper has argued that black humor was also present in the original film, but viewers did not acknowledge it due to its shocking content.
Oh, it's not the fun. There are funny parts. That's not what I'm objecting to.
What are you objecting to?
Vomiting.
I have a big objection to that as well. When originally submitted to the MPAA, it received an X certificate, prompting the filmmakers to release it as unrated.
Whatever.
So there you go. Let's talk about the cast and crew. By the way, this is kind of an interesting factoid. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie was loosely based upon Ed Gein, the famous serial killer from, I guess, Wisconsin. And he was also the basis of the movie Psycho. So 2 movies
I did
were based
hear
on
that.
him. So,
But I saw this interview with this director, and he was talking about he and another director were thinking of digging up the grave of Ed Gein's mother because they didn't believe that he had actually skinned her. And they were going to do it. And then at the last minute, and these are famous people whose names I'm blanking out on. I want to say it was Errol Morris and Otto Preminger were going to go dig up the grave. I just listened to this interview with Errol Morris talking about
horrifying.
it. And then at the end, because they were both had this weird fascination with Ed Gein, and they just didn't think it was true. And there was like no way of proving it without it, and so they were going to do it, and then at the last minute they chickened out.
That's probably a good move. Let's talk about the cast and crew, shall we? Toby Hooper was the writer, director, producer. You know him from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, Poltergeist, Life Force. The list goes on and on and on.
You have to say that out of those films, Poltergeist is really good, so it wouldn't surprise me if someone was guiding his hand.
I love Poltergeist.
Poltergeist is a classic, but it drips Spielberg. It drips.
It does. It really does.
So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know he was the producer, but it just doesn't. It feels like a different movie.
I agree. It's definitely not Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, if you know what I'm saying.
Agreedy.
Let's see. Dennis Hopper played Lieutenant Lefty Enright. You know him from such things as Easy Rider, Blue Velvet,
Trip.
Speed in 1994, Waterworld in 1995. The list goes on and on. Hoosiers. He's been in a ton of shit.
I didn't see any of that shit.
Caroline Williams played Vanita Stretch Brock, which I'm not sure we ever hear her full name. She's just called Stretch by everyone who asks. She was in Renfield in 2023.
Did not see. Did you see that? That's a Nick Cage film.
I didn't care for it. I didn't think it was anything special.
All right, passing.
Well, it's that thing, and I've talked about this before. When Nicolas Cage is trying to be funny, I find him less funny. You know what I mean? I want him just doing his thing. She was in 10 Minutes to Midnight in 2020. I don't know what that is.
That sounds familiar. Go ahead. Keep talking.
She was in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and she was in Days of Thunder as Jenny Burns in 1990 with Tom Cruise and the gang. So I like Days of Thunder, actually. No shame in my game.
You know I never saw that.
Oh, you should. Jim Sydow.
10 to midnight, bitten by a rabid bat, a late-night radio host terrorizes her co-workers as she slowly transforms into a vampire.
Not
2020. 85% on Rotten Tomatoes.
So maybe we have to check it out.
I mean, they might have to go on the list.
Jim Sydow played, you know him from Texas Chainsaw Massacre as the old man in 1974. He was the cook in 1986's Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Same character. He was in one episode of Amazing Stories in 1987.
That was a Spielberg series.
It was. He was also in something called Hot Wire in 1980 that I'm unfamiliar with.
Unfamiliar.
Yep. This was Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 was his last film role. So there you go. Bill Moseley played Chop Top. You know him from The Devil's Rejects in 2005. He was in Repo, the Genetic Opera in 2008.
Opera.
He was in House of a Thousand Corpses as Otis in 2003. And he was in the remake of Night of the Living Dead from 1990 playing Johnny.
I didn't see it because I don't think it needed to be remade.
That wasn't bad, though. It was Tony Todd.
Right.
Who else? Leatherface was played by Bill Johnson.
Do his friends call him Toddy?
They do, actually. Bill Johnson, you know him for Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 as Leatherface, and he's not the same actor who played him in the original movie. I guess that guy wanted too much money.
There's way too much lip licking.
There was, no question.
Gentlemen, not a good look. Let me just say that. Not a good look.
He was in DOA in 1988. That's the Dennis Quaid, Meg Ryan movie, if I'm remembering correctly.
Oh, what was the one with Michael Keaton, or was it the Fonz in a morgue? What was that?
Oh, that's Night Shift.
Night Shift.
Yes. It was both of them, actually.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
It's been 1,000 years.
Directed by Ron Howard. He was also in the Once and Future Smash in 2022. And
I don't even know what that means.
He was the voice of the Guardian in Ultima 7, the Black Gate video game.
Oh. How about that?
Anybody else you want to know about? Yeah, really isn't.
No.
Although Joe Bob plays a movie critic in a deleted scene that you can see online if you're so
I was looking for it. It said Joe Bob as Gonzo movie critic, and I was like scanning.
Nope. Cut loose. They snipped it because it's just kind of fan servicey. It really doesn't do anything. Let's talk about the ratings, shall we?
Yeah, we shall.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 has a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. Do you know what the audience gave it?
The audience gave it a 90%.
46%.
What did Rob Zombie give it? 100% fresh.
110. Let's look at the top critic, shall we? Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. He had a
lot of time. We can barely squeeze out one movie a week. He literally saw anything that hit a theater.
He sees every GD film.
He's watching us right now in heaven.
He is. He says, Part 2 has a lot of blood and disembowelment, to be sure, but it doesn't have the terror of the original, the desire to be taken seriously. It's a geek show. 1 out of 4.
It's a freak show. Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, I wasn't scared. I was barfy. I thought, why don't this family meet the family from The Hills Have Eyes, and then they can interbreed? It's a dry heat out there. It will help with keeping all their corpses crusty.
Or a dry heave while you're at it.
Dry heave while you're at it.
Walter Goodman of the New York Times says, no matter how adeptly Chainsaw 2 was put together, it would remain just another exploitation flick for fans.
Adeptly put together? That was the implication, that it was adeptly put together.
Correct.
Okay.
Just another exploitation flick for fans who get a tingle from watching blades slash into flesh and innards peep out. 2 out of 5.
Yeah. I don't want to hear what's tingling while you watch that.
No tingling. Do you have to let it tingle? What is your rating, Aaron, for Texas Chainsaw 2?
I am going to give it 1 out of 5. Toby's getting that fucking grenade up his ass, and he's going to have Nam flashbacks.
Yeah, I would say probably 1.5. 1.5 out of 5 for Texas Chainsaw 2.
Did you buy it, Kevin?
Oh, hell no. Hell no. We We watched it on Amazon Prime, free with our subscription. But now
with ads.
Free with ads. I'm paying full freight and you're still going to throw ads at me. Thank you. Just the way Toby Hooper meant it for us to watch it. Mm-hmm. No, it's not scary. It's more gross and not in a fun way.
Yeah.
And then the end just kind of denigrates into nonsense. So,
yeah. Dude, if I saw those guys hopping around just laughing nonstop, there were either trays. I'm just guessing. I'm just gonna say it wasn't coffee. It was just trays of cocaine and ADHD. 100%. If these dudes weren't actors, they would clearly be drummers in some kind of speed metal band.
Absolutely. And White Zombie.
White lines run through my mind.
Any last thoughts? Is that it?
My last thought is I need to get these thoughts out of my mind.
No
Yikes.
Question. So, thank you very much. Go to our pages across the internet. We're on Facebook, we're on X, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, TikTok. You may be watching us on YouTube.
Maybe.
Who's to say? You can also email us, the podcast that wouldn't die at Gmail. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere the finer podcasts are available. So don't forget to like, share, rate, and review. Won't you?
Treat yourself.
Aaron, what is your social media situation?
I just need to give a nod to, of course, the passing of Roger Corman this weekend.
Yes.
R.I.P. He must have, how old was he when he passed away?
He was in his 90s.
Bless him.
Yeah.
That would be a real dream. If we could have been in a Roger Corman film, that would have been delightful.
So we enjoy that. We'll have to do a few more Roger Corman movies in the coming weeks. Add them to the list, for goodness sake.
Add them to the list. So you were asking about my media. So
what's your media?
I'm the Cult of Aaron on Instagram. I am on X, but I never check it unless Kevin says, hey, someone sent you a message. Okay. And I have art on Artsy and First Dibs. Check it out. Check it out, friends.
It out, for God's sakes. As you know, we like to include viewer, listener comments, questions from the interwebs. So let's take a look. Discussing the film It Lives Again, Kevin Evans says, a big hell nah. I saw that at the drive-in theater a long time ago, and it scared the crap out of me. So nope. So
to this day, when I see a baby, I kick it. Just because I'm sure it's going to eventually sink its teeth into me.
Its two claws are going to get at you. No, better safe than sorry, I always say, right?
Preemptive, exactly. Ask for forgiveness, not permission.
I don't know if anybody would ever give you permission. Please kick my baby. So
it's a bad baby.
It's a bad baby. Next week, we're discussing the horror classic Hatchet. Aaron, you didn't know we're doing this. Hatchet.
Isn't that juvenile fiction?
Yeah, it is actually not. That juvenile fiction.
It's not that book.
It's not based upon the book where the poor kid crashes his plane into the woods and has to learn to live by himself. No.
Gary Paulson wrote it. It's a movie?
It's a horror movie. Horror movie Hatchet. So this is important. Do not mistake it with A Cry in the Wild or whatever it's called. The TV version of Hatchet, the young adult novel. No, don't do that. You can watch Hatchet from 2006 on Hoopla. You can watch it on
library application.
Yes, you can watch it on Tubi with ads, or you can watch it on Plex for free.
Kevin, this appears to be a slasher film.
It is a slasher film.
Oh. But Robert Englund's in it.
It's an all-star cast. I actually have not. They made quite a few sequels. I saw I think it's the 4th or 5th sequel, just called Victor Crowley, which is the name of the killer in these movies, and they seem like a lot of fun.
Okay, I put in Hatchet film. This article is about the 2006 horror film For the 1990 film based on the Gary Paulson, please click over here.
Yeah, that's different. Don't mix them up, for God's sakes. Although the Gary Paulson novel, it is very heartwarming, right? Because it's not just about him surviving in the wilderness, which is not unlike the Hatchet horror movie. It's also about like his family's divorce. So how that's upsetting to him, even though he's fighting for his life. So check that out. Send any favorite scenes, favorite quotes, comments, and questions, and we may talk about it on the show. So thank you very much, and be well.
Good day.